Thanks for coming. I'm Dan Strebel, faculty here in the Department of Cinema Studies. Just to remind you, we do this almost every Wednesday at this time, special guests, screenings, lectures, talks, etc. So keep coming back. My only job here is to introduce Lynne Sachs, who put this together and has been working on this for 5 years now, 4 years now, the experimental lecture. So, Lynne, tell us what we're going to do.
Okay. I have a little introduction for you for tonight's program, which is the 5th sort of annual experimental lecture. Over the past 7 years, I have co-hosted 5 experimental lectures as part of my teaching of avant-garde film at NYU. The idea is that the lecture itself is experimental in nature, and the subject usually circulates around experimental film. For me, a talk such as this is absolutely critical in an institution where the teaching of conventional modes of cinematic production has been woven into every aspect of the undergraduate curriculum. I believe that many of our students come to NYU to find an alternative to this paradigm, and it is our responsibility to introduce them to the work of artists who are at least trying to shake up the commercial paradigm. The university is a place to celebrate radical and original ways of thinking and creating. Since 2007, we've heard from 4 of experimental film's greatest luminaries. This list of artists and their specific talks includes Barbara Hammer's The Cinema of the Optic Nerve. Barbara Hammer's here. Craig Baldwin's The Collage Essay From Compilation Film to Culture Jam. Ken Jacobs' Cucaracha Cinema, and last year Peggy Awish's Parlez Femme. This summer I was thrilled when Carolee Schneemann accepted my invitation to create number 5 in what I hope will be a long history of cinematic provocation. I discovered Carolee's work as well as that of other women artists who were exploring the dynamic between film, performance, and their own lives in the late 1980s. Like Carolee, Agnes Varda, Chantal Ackerman, Trenti Menha, Julie Dash, Yvonne Rainer, Abigail Child, and Valley Export were all taking incredible artistic and personal risks in the process of creating their own distinct cinematic language. But it was from Carolee that I first discovered the possibility of transforming art making as a practice to a way of living. Here's what she had to say about being a filmmaker. I'm quoting you. I'm working with film as an antagonist, shredding the screen, breaking through the image, dismantling the fixity in space. For me, Carolee's call to action, both behind and in front of the camera, shook up everything the world had thrown my way in terms of using cinema to express ideas. I saw Fuse's, her breathtaking and groundbreaking 1965 cinema poem To the Sensual, and finally became comfortable enough with my own body to explore nudity in my own films. I saw Carolee's astute juxtaposition of images of the devastation of the Vietnam War with American pop music in Viet Flakes, and realized that passionate political concerns could be integrated into the tableau of a formally complex moving image work. Over 2 decades, I walked into many New York City galleries where I've walked into many New York City galleries where I see polished, detached, and sellable art. But when I go to a Carolee Schneemann exhibition, I discover, for example, a full palette of raw emotion in painted scrolls she hangs next to video monitors exploding with both original and found imagery. In Schneemann's 2003 mixed media installation, Devour, which I saw at I-Beam, she tackled the haunting remnants of unimaginably large political disasters in the realm of the domestic universe. A few weeks ago, I read her reflections in on her installation, Vespers Pool, in an essay in the Brooklyn Rail. Here, her evocation of the psychic connection she had to her cat spoke to my awareness of the mortal coil like no other artwork I have ever encountered. From the abject to the sublime, from the quotidian to the mythic, from the brush to the computer, Carolee Schneemann produces paintings, performances, essays, films, and videos that embrace the entire spectrum of what it is to be human, aware, and alive. So I present Carolee Schneemann.
There are seats in the very front, if there's still people who need them,
Yeah, please come down.
right down here. Well, I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm happy I can still speak. I fell just coming into the auditorium, and I think I've torn some major muscle. I can't possibly stand up, and I'm being helped around by being carried in a chair, so we'll see how that suits us for the little reception later. You probably have to throw pieces of cheese at me. The ice pack, I should tell you now, is not for the hot pussy. It's for some probably torn muscle. Given that introduction, the first work I'm going to show is the most recent work I've done, and it's called Flange 6 RPM. 6 RPM is the motor speed that most of my kinetic works move with or through, and that's been the case since the early, the mid-60s when I first motorized umbrellas for an installation, the installation that was the space formulation for iBody. So let's see. Hey Joe, turn off the PowerPoint. Give us a moment of suspense before we show Flange. I wanted to start with this because it has deeply to do with aspects of process. I was walking along 7th Avenue, not tripping, maybe 2 years ago, and I saw just a shape in space, an elongated, simple shape. It could have been like a leaf or like an arm or like a fossil dug up out of the ground. And I went home and I started to draw it. And then I asked my friends, has anybody been working with this kind of fossil shape? And they said, it's probably yours. The next step was to work with a graduate student and begin to cast this shape into lost wax. And I accumulated what I would call a vocabulary of them. And I saw from the very beginning that they had to move, that they had to be in some kind of a group, almost waving, moving around and back and forth. So once I accumulated the shapes, then I needed to design a way to motorize them and also to cast them. So what you're going to see is the full installation, I hope, of the work. It looks fiery and bloody and like a huge rose blowing up because the casting was filmed. And when the lost wax goes into the mold for the aluminum, it's fiery and explosive looking. And they're all moving at 6 RPM, and we can talk about it after we see what it looks like. Okay. Am I in the way of it? No. Cut my head off. There should be sound, the sound of the fire. maybe it's not there, but okay, it's not showing the sculptures, it's just a projection for the installation, right? There's no sculptures here. Are the whole things here?
I think that's all.
Okay, we'll go on to the next work then, thank you. Give me lights for a minute. The full sculptures are in the PowerPoint. We might go back to that at the very end. So, what I wanted to do is start with the most elusive process work, flange, that results in a complex mechanical morphology. And I'm going to end with devour, which is a work that was slow to evolve. That's about juxtaposing disaster and normalcy. But in between, I have three sort of little sonatas. They're completely improvised, and I don't know how I do it, and that fits the theme of the lecture. I don't know where they come from. Americana I Ching apple pie starts with how much I detest cooking. That when I was in a permanent connected relationship, in order that my sweetheart wasn't just living on donuts and cigarettes, I would have to cook. So one of the things I like to do is special meals for holidays. And I was thinking, what's the most engrossing, demanding American meal? Is the apple pie. And so I made a recipe for my kind of apple pie that used savage ingredients, that you could go to your work table in your garage and prepare your table for this kind of apple pie. And I was guided by instructions in the I Ching, such as I am not what I appear to be, and patience furthers. So I'd be happy to talk about this technique afterwards. It's about 16 minutes long, and you will learn the special technique. Okay. We're ready for the next one. Okay. Is that Jeff? Joe.
Another non-conventional work tool. Cooking an apple pie is inhabited, internalizes 2,000 years of dreadful prerogatives having to do with what I would call the good breast and the absent breast. And the good breast has been suppressed in Western traditions, so that we have to think about the apple pie in terms of its art historical components. So as postmodernists, now we know that an apple is not simply an apple. The apple has to be understood in many of its different conceptual layers. We could start with the pagan aspect of the apple, where the apple is a generous offering of nature. And we have the apple pie celebrates the fecundity of all the trees offering us their apples. That concept of the apple relates to the good breast, to the generous breast. And as soon as we have the good, generous offering breast, we also have the traditions of patriarchal envy and confusion about the generosity of fruitfulness and how to control it, how to dominate nature. So then we have to understand that even baking an apple pie re-inhabits this territory that's been possessed with gender overdeterminations. The Freudian seepage. That looks too thick. Trixie, would you stir it a little, make it thinner? But in terms of all our postmodernist training, I could offer you this. That could be a meditation, it could be a desensualization, it could be an androgynous, iconographic, circular integration in which nothing happens at all. So that's one kind of apple pie. Then I found recently a Ralph Lauren version of an apple pie. This is the good breast as a hostile offering. So that's another kind of apple pie to consider. So the technique that I'm going to show you will keep you so close to your art process. And I think for men it's especially good because it gives men an opportunity to also become the good breast and to go against all the traditions of excellence and perfectibility, the rule of the father, the conformity of law. As artists, I think it's very useful not to have cooking confuse your art process. So I favor the hammer in my work, and some of my apples will be hammered. And then if that gets tedious, you could take something left over from a performance. That could be another sort of apple tool. I tend to prefer the hammer. And the knife. Then, for those of you who have a really historic, archaic feeling, bring your own labyrinth. This is the ancient symbol of the double vulva. It means deeply involved in the apple as a pagan goddess-connected cooking process. let me just assure you that anything that falls on the floor can go into the pie. Because all human beings eat a pound of dirt a year. And in New York, we probably eat a pound of roaches a year. Invisible, of course. I recommend the Labras today. Okay. Since this is a time-based event, I need someone to help chop these apples. Who would like to? Trixie. Is that your name? Lexi. Yeah, just get some of those ready. They go in here. Do it quietly, because now I'm going to read you the ingredients. Okay, so 1 sack of apples, raw sugar, egg yolks, oil, butter, honey, cinnamon, lemon. Okay, so it says open the flour sack. Okay, now we have our basic pastry. The butter is missing. I can't believe it. Now, it's very important as you're maintaining your relationship to your art and your cooking, to not let the old traditions of cooking inhibit your feeling for your art, because that's where we all become very defeated. The other aspect that we should concentrate on is the tactility of our materials. And oh, wonderful, thank you. Oh my gosh, and it's organic butter. This is a great place, huh? You're going to like this pie. So with the butter, you don't have to do anything very special. Just think of it as an extension of your skin and your essence that you're going to offer to your friends and anyone who will eat this pie. Going heavy on the butter is not a bad idea. So you can use an egg, that's great. And a little butter. This might even heat up and go into the pie. Do you want to? And you need a timer so that this doesn't go on forever, right? Okay, let's give it. This pie should be ready in 17 minutes, or else we're all leaving here, okay? It doesn't matter where you put the apron, it's just part of the iconography. Okay, I have to prepare the flour. And while I'm doing it, I guess I should review the Marxist aspect of the labor involved. First of all, there's planting the apple tree. Who planted it? Don't forget, add a little oil just because, why not? This is not conventional. Most people don't put sugar in the pastry. But, hey, why not? Oh, I forgot the water. Hey, that's really bad. You've definitely got to moisten your pastry. There we go. Now it feels like real pastry. At this point, I think you could begin to imagine if you're making a special iconographic pastry, can you make like little kind of Hannah Wilke wings, little bulbic wings out of it? Or what would a Boyce pastry shape look like? A hat, right? What else? Who else could we do in pastry? Okay, now. Okay, this is the traditional old-fashioned way with a roller pin. I really don't recommend it. See, it really makes a mess. So I recommend skip the rolling pin. It's just nice to have it as a kind of traditional element. And go back to your tactile sculptural involvement. Ready for the apples. These should be layered very carefully. We want lemon, cinnamon, and honey on these apples. My goodness, they're in large hunks today. Okay, lemon, honey, or granulated sugar. Okay, we're in luck. Cinnamon. So does everybody feel comfortable with this technique? The second layer of apples. Brown sugar. Lemon. And let me just check the real recipe here. It says, I think I've got everything. I'm hoping to have my own cooking TV show if you recommend this pie. It's called Deconstruction for the Postmodernist Artist Who's Trapped with the Dinner Party. Don't hesitate to serve this pie on your paint table. Well, at the very end, it might be possible to make a little extra layer of crust from what's cooking there in the projector. Okay, now I'm going to do a miracle. I'm going to put this in the oven and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Where's the pie? Where's I put the pie? So I'd like to invite everyone to come and, everyone. Come to the table. No, that's chaos. What am I going to do? Should I just dump it on the floor? Dump it on the floor? Put it on the floor. Put it on the table. Okay. I mean, New York people are vicious and aggressive about everything, so there's not enough pie. Now we have a Lacanian, a Freudian, and a real Marxist problem going on here all at once. It's the social contract that's being not bridged properly. Sorry, your pieces are going to be so small. Hi, honey. See, as you come around, this is. See how far it goes. This is a tiny taste system. Okay. You like a corner? Sure. Okay. Okay. Is Bill still here? Because this is his issue of trust. Hi, Elga. Oh, Frankie, my collaborator. Elga, come here. You have to try this. Okay.
So I have to dedicate this showing to Roberto Guerra, the amazing photographer who died a few months ago. And it was his eye and devotion and amazing responsiveness that put it in a shape where I could edit it and have it work. So thanks to Roberto. Also to my friend Emily Kagan, who found it in a whole pile of material that I didn't know what to do with. So the next two little works, they're brief. Mysteries of the Pussies is in both English and Finnish. Is anyone here speaking Finnish? Anyone? No one? You're scratching your head. You're not speaking Finnish? No. Too bad. Okay. Well, it's all translated. It's based on intensive research on atrocities committed to cats in medieval religious conventions and atrocities committed towards women. It plays on the use of the word pussy through different linguistic permutations. And I guess that's enough to say about it now. There's a little introduction in text that will guide the rest. Okay, who's on the DVDs back there? Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Volva goes to school and discovers she doesn't exist.
Häpy menee kouluun ja huomaa, että häntä ei ole olemassa.
Volva goes to church and discovers she is obscene. Quote from St. Augustine.
Häpy menee kirkkoon ja huomaa olevansa hävytön.
Volva deciphers Lacan and Baudrillard and discovers she is only a sign, a signification of the void, of absence, of what is not male. She is given a pen for taking notes. Volva reads biology and understands she is an amalgam of proteins and oxytocin hormones, which govern all her desires.
Häpy lukee biologiaa ja huomaa, että hän on vain sekoitus proteiineja ja oksitosiinihormoneja, jotka ohjaavat kaikkia hänen halujaan.
Volva studies Freud and realizes she will have to transfer a clitoral orgasm to her vagina. Volva reads Masters and Johnson and understands her vaginal orgasms have not been measured by any instrumentality, and that she should only experience clitoral orgasms. The torture of animals, especially cats, was a popular amusement throughout early modern Europe. To protect yourself from sorcery by cats, there is one classic remedy. Maim it, cut its tail, clip its ears, smash one of its legs, tear or burn its fur, and you would break its malevolent power. That's from Robert Darnton, The Great Cat Massacre, New York, Basic Books, 1984. Volva decodes feminist constructivist semiotics. She realizes she has no authentic feelings at all. Even her erotic sensations are constructed by patriarchal projections, impositions, and conditioning.
Häpy purkaa feminististä konstruktivistista semiotiikkaa ja oivaltaa, että hänellä ei ole ollenkaan todellisia tunteita. Jopa hänen erottiset tuntemuksensa rakentuvat patriarkaalisista projektioista, asetuksista ja ehdoista.
Vulva interprets essentialist feminist texts and paints her face with her menstrual blood, howling when the moon is full.
Häpy tulkitsee essentialististen feministien tekstejä, maalaa kasvonsa kuukautisverellään ulvoen täysikuun aikaan.
Vulva strips naked, fills her mouth and cunt with paintbrushes, and runs into the cedar bar at midnight to frighten the ghosts of de Kooning, Pollock, Klein. Vulva recognizes her symbols and names on graffiti under the railroad trestle. Slit, snatch, enchilada, beaver, muff, koozie, fish and finger pie.
Häpy tunnistaa symbolinsa ja nimensä graffiteissa ratasiltojen alla. Tuhero, reva, pesä, ripsipiirakka, römpsä, mirri.
Vulva learns to analyze politics by asking, is this good for vulva? Then should we take a little break before the last two? Video.
Would you like to do that?
Does anyone have, no, say no, keep going. All right, there's a lot of head nodding, keep going, keep going. Okay, Misties of the Pussies, is really as improvised as was possible. The librarian had never worked with me before on anything like that, and it was that kind of transformation that the introduction notes make clear. She had glasses and her hair all wrapped up, and I said, could you try to improvise with me, responding to positions of my cats while we do, I'll read from my antagonistic contradictory notes. She said, yes, sure, I'll try. And what should I wear? I said, just something black. So 6 o'clock, you open the door, and there's fucking Bridget Bardot. Beautiful blonde hair and no glasses. She's thrown away, and she's absolutely looks like conventional beauty dynamite. I said, okay, this is all very lucky for the piece. Pinea Silva is something I wanted to do, something short and Christmassy for a little evening event at Electronic Arts Intermix. They're the distributors who help so many artists. They really save our life being able to put our work forward and protect it and annotate it. So Christmas is my favorite season. And I come from a mixed religious background, so there's always some stress about who had the real Christmas spirit and how much could it be indulged. So I've been thinking about this little piece probably forever. And you'll see I found some remarkable images to concretize the research. Okay, Jeff, Pinea Silva. Just switched.
That's not the first one.
an effort to recuperate Christmas for all of you who have so many contrary kinds of traditions and pieces of information. And, it's so complicated. Look inside here. We've got Paleolithic, we've got Roman, we have pagan, we have Christian. We're also going to have some Palestinian representations. So, this is a traditional masculine Christmas tree that implies fecundity and gift, and it's part of the appealing phallic decoration that's contrary to militaristic and overdetermined masculinity. So we want to cherish this Christmas tree. Now here's my graphic dilemma. This is the Volvic Christmas tree. And as we see, it's got a different gravitational pull. It's upside down. Now here's the Christmas tree. Following this gender analysis, we could say that this traditional masculine tree is in wound, undecorated in wound. But, good for the family. Properly decorated. And here's the traditional duet of our kind of Western tree. You're not going to find this kind of tree in Jerusalem, although our mythology seems to expect that. This is our iconic couple, the heteronormal, in front of the United States government Christmas tree of several years past. Now let's imagine that it has this Volvic energy, and these trees belong to the goddess of the sky, so they're not gravitationally pulling up, they're gravitationally hanging from the sky. So that introduces us to another kind of formal morphology of what is position upward, what is the energy of that, and what is the containment of that same form reverse moving down. It's a common problem in the rain. It's moving by itself again. Why is it doing that? I don't know. Okay. Here we have, I wanted to introduce something about Santa Claus as a gay icon with a full sack. And if you want to provide for him, your chimney should be ample sufficiently. It would be nice to make sure he's not going to get broiled. So let's have a warm, gay chimney, and maybe oiled. So here's the iconic perfect tree, and it has the mysterious attributes of miniaturizations all around under it. What they signify, I haven't analyzed yet. There'll be another version next Christmas. And, I'm delighted to take any anthropological or psychosexual interpretation you would contribute to this. So this is an important piece of cultural phenomenon. These are Christmas trees being sold in Jerusalem. The seller is a Palestinian Santa Claus. I think this opens up our threshold of expectation and constraint of what we think really belongs to our tradition and how mutable and odd and perverse it could even seem
Does everyone recognize the man with the snowball? He's a historic figure. Anybody old enough to know who that is? No. Bravo, bravo. Yeah, that was a president of the United States. And, that was his Christmas carol. So I want to encourage all of you to get your own tree. You can call it Materna de Noche, the goddess of the night tree. That was the ancient tradition. Call it whatever appeals to you and the mythology you'd like to pass on. But do trim the base. That's not a castration thing. That's to help it absorb more water. If you want to do that. Definitely put it in a pot of water, but not upside down. What else can I tell you? Spray it. Spray it once you have your tree, but take the lights off when you're spraying it with water. And of course, my symbol of all domestic contentment. If the cat doesn't tear the tree down, it's a very intense harmony. No, go back. You know, that last image is very peculiar and we need to see it. Thank you, Trevor. Where is it? That's it. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll leave you with this mystifying inversion.
That the Christmas Carol singer is the visual artist Jan Harrison. This is her side specialty. The final work for tonight is Devour. It's the work that I mentioned that collects juxtapositions of normalcy and violence. And I photographed all the images, the airplane. I ran around in an airport in Los Angeles following the plane. The big sinister bird turned up in my driveway just at the right moment. The car race wreck, I was teaching in Maine, so that was part of the vocabulary of normal domestic game violence. And all the sound is found. The very initial images I found walking past a barber shop on 29th Street, and I saw the razor on the neck so tenderly being moved. I thought, I'll never get this. I'm way out here in the street, and I can't go into a Puerto Rican barber shop with my camera. But I got it. So it's full of these strange filmic gifts where it seems impossible. And then I edited in terms of rhythm. There's a basic underlying 1, 2, 3 waltz time rhythm, and some of that is being held by a cat doing its nails on a log. And I think, does anybody know how long it is?
12 minutes.
12 minutes, thank you. Okay, and it also is presented as an installation with various monitors in the space, so there's contradictory sequences happening at once, but we'll just see it as film. And okay, Jeff, it's yours.
any prize that you would want to get.
Okay, Jeff, it's looped, so you can take it away, please. So I'm so happy to take any questions. I can't stand up. I've torn a major muscle group tripping on the steps here. I think that's what I did, but I can't stand up. So you be brave and just take a chance with your questions. I'm happy for simple questions, any old thing. Yeah, so in the back, yes.
Hi, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you decided to transform these pieces into
Transfer
film.
what? You need the mic. Somebody's going to run around with a mic for you, but
Shout it out.
Okay, so I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about how you transform some of these performance pieces into films, and some of the editing techniques and some of the decisions you go through in sort of post-processing, thinking about these.
yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with random capture, because I usually don't have a film crew ready, and nothing is planned carefully in advance. So I'm stuck with having to organize rough material that's not in the proportion that I would always hope for. But that's my collage process. I like that. That's okay. And sometimes the sound is so degraded that we have to run a text track under it. Basically, I'm working with certain embedded concepts, a clarity of what lies behind the research that I was doing. And a lot of my research is, of course, based on outrage and horrific history. But often the way to work with it is to make it as funny as possible instead of hitting people over the head with it. So it seeps up on them, or it creeps up on them. I'm not sure it's always the success that I would imagine, but it's a process, so. Yeah.
Lynn.
Hi.
Thank you.
Oh, well
So, you named your talk, Where Did I Make the Wrong Turn? What's been so interesting in your trajectory is that you always took the risky turn. You
Took the
always
what turn?
The risky turn. The
Risky
risky
turn.
What turns have been, do you feel in your life as an artist? Are there any turns that you regret, or any turns that you're actually so glad that you took and you hesitated?
I never thought they were risky. I just thought this is the obvious thing that I want to work with or explore or examine. What I'd really like to do now is work with the details of the destruction of Gaza, the hospital, the library, the school, the waterway, the fishing, the orchards, the olives, the pears, the peaches, the notebooks, the papers, the newspaper. That's about the most taboo subject I could approach now in this moment. I think one of the things that defines how I work is that I don't work with a camera person. Usually they're self-shot, and I'll have technical assistance editing, but I have to work with a very particular, flexible. I discovered that most editors, when I come in with material, say, okay, how do you want this to go from 35 to 70? And that's an impossible offering to me. I said, well, first, can we make this go inside out and backwards, and then we count it for 15 and switch it? So I had a wonderful editor to work with who found that process normal, but he was rare. That's Trevor Shimizu, who was at Electronic Arts Intermix. Yeah.
Carolee, hi.
Barbara, hi.
Hi. I was reading about the lecture tonight, and I think it mentioned something that you were going to go back to your childhood and talk about how folds and grids, how there were some other formal elements, how they've been in your work throughout the years.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear how those elements were in your childhood. What were they?
Yeah, they're wonderful. They're amazing. That's a rather detailed lecture, so you didn't prepare it for tonight. But I have childhood drawings which anticipate all my future work, all of it. There's a thematic cat that occurs over and over again. And these are drawings usually when I'm 4 years old. There's a very carefully observed pencil drawing of a baby in a bassinet seen from the side throwing a toy. That would be my brother. There is what I call the exuberant cat. It's a cat seems to be reaching out of a box with its arms. It relates to gestures that occur so many years later in up to including Her Limits, or the work in the tree, in the swing, before it becomes formalized. There's an obsession with stairs, and they're really crude. And when I study them and project them, I see I have interior scroll from the side. All the folds are there. So it's quite a full analysis to it. And since I was not encouraged to be an artist, quite the contrary, it was amazing that my mom saved these really, really early things, and I found them in a basket. And I showed them in a lecture called Mysteries of the Iconographies. And that in itself is about an hour. And it's full of the kinds of coincidence that I really cherish. Under the image that I drew of the cat when I was 4 years old with the exuberant paws going up, under the cat there's a set of lines, streaky lines. I had no idea what they could be. Were they shredded fabric? About 4 years ago, I was in Liverpool, and I saw these buildings being built, and they had those same shredded lines going up instead of coming down. I said, there they are. That's what I drew. And what could this be? It's rebar. Everybody know what rebar is? You stick it into buildings, they're just these sort of metal strands, and then they pour cement over them to attach to the previous layer of cement, but they're identical to the 4-year-old drawing. So things like that is what I hope for. I don't know if the rest of you followed that unlikely set of materials. You do, Lynne. You're shaking your head yes.
Actually, it's funny about rebar, there's a piece that
give her the mic.
there's an amazing piece about disaster that Ai Weiwei made with rebar, where he took all the bars from the earthquake in China and he straightened them all out, thousands of bars, because he was trying to draw attention to the buildings which had always been flawed. And so it's a very interesting formal exploration of those materials that you're talking about. So
Who did that?
Ai Weiwei.
Ai Weiwei, okay, right away.
So,
Good.
but I'd never seen anybody work with rebar, and now I know that it's your fascination too.
Dan, thank you. He's a good runner.
Raise your hand, please. Or I'll have to call upon you.
Doesn't somebody want to know where all the erotic imagery was
Where's
tonight?
all the erotic imagery?
Where was
Where
it?
is all the erotic imagery?
It's in everybody's imaginations or memory, or it was dominating everything else I made. So I've been just giving it its other realm where it has such a presence, and trying to bring forward the other dynamics and dimensions of what I make. I don't know if that's worth it. What do you think?
Didn't do a very good job. It's all
Not
very
good?
erotic.
Sorry. No. Well, you've seen it all, so harsh criticism.
You have a follow-up to that, Bill?
No.
Toby.
Carolee, thank you for your talk. And as I've been listening to you and watching these videos, I've been thinking back to what I know more of your work, which you're right, I do know more of the body kind of oriented, the early performances, and I think about how I know them through images. I know them through the documentation that has kind of remained with us. And I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about how you relate to those early works and to these works that kind of have stayed with us through their documentation because they were ephemeral and because they were kind of in passing, and how you think about that work now as kind of the relationship between the work as performance and then the way it remains with us as documentation. For example, with these performative lectures, I mean, were they performances when you conceived of them? Did you conceive of them in relationship to a recorded image?
Yes, always in connection to a recorded image. Otherwise, we won't have anything to talk about. They're just gone. Or if I wrote about them or did drawings of them, it wouldn't be coming out of that lived momentum. It's another way of thinking, and I do a lot of that. But my connection to the early work is almost as if, oh, look what she did. And that was good, that could be better. I'm in charge of a degree of representation and interpretation, and it takes a lot of time responding to certain essays and interviews and questions, but I have to concentrate on what's new and now for me. And I'm a painter. I always say I'm a painter. I'm not a performance artist. I'm a painter who went into performative time and space, and I remain a visual artist. And I think there's a dilemma that the men who initiated happenings and fluxus and events and are seen as the initiators of performance art, they're all visual artists who went back to what they made and were never locked into be calling a performance artist. They're visual artists, and they do sculpture, they do painting, they do installation. And it's interesting that the definition, the terminology remains feminized with active male participants, but not from the originating group of men.
I just want to thank you again. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your use of humor and how that plays into your work. I definitely had a few good laughs tonight, and just more on that.
The humor comes out of a lot of anger, usually. Like, I'm so fucking mad, how do I deal with this? It's gotta be funny. There has to be a way I can throw myself down the stairs to point out that that's not a good escalator anymore. Or it's a source of where I can get hold of a contradiction and move it into a terrain that might be funny. I'm never sure, but it's an experiment. It's a way of trying to move anger right around opposite. It's stiff. Anger is so rigid and stiff. Move its position, shake it up, break it up. Of course, Devour is not funny at all, and I'm very pleased with it. And the Vietnam works are still very upsetting to me. So I can't always work with humor. I can't always find a dynamic with it. Do you work with humor? What do you do with it?
I'd like to say I do when I can. I agree. I think it does come from a
Wait,
place
take
of
the mic.
anger. I said I do agree it does come from a place of anger a lot of the time, and it's the only way to make those kind of emotions palatable to the majority of people. But I think it also rides this fine line of, if we laugh something off, are we just doing that because we're uncomfortable and therefore are allowed to ignore it? So I think, it's a double-edged sword in some ways.
I think humor is really complicated, and my source of contemporary inspiration now, of course, is Key and Peele. Does everybody know Key and Peele? Yeah. Das Negros, that's amazing. Cute Puppy, I guess that's my favorite, being done in drag, and with that deep Freudian undertow. Yeah, there's a bunch of their fans just laughing at the thought of them. Who else loves them here? Well, we've got a lot of converts waiting. Okay.
I was just going to say that I think your humor is very parallel to your erotics, because it's a very opening out, and it's a kind of response that you use very creatively, in both situations where your anger may have inspired some of the erotics as well, to say, I'm tired of this version of the world, and as well. So I think that tonight, there was not as much erotics, but there was so much humor that kind of made up for it and paralleled it in a way, and was also the opening that you bring to this, and a way of bringing all this amazing history that sometimes is sleeping and not known, and so I think it's beautiful, the humor and the erotics already.
Thank you, that's a nice balancing. Yeah.
Hi, Lynne, in introducing you, talked about something oppositional, and compared it though to conventional Hollywood cinema because of the context of NYU, which is sort of educating conventional Hollywood cinema people. But you describe yourself as an artist, and I'm wondering if that opposition, which in some ways in the art world is almost like kind of standard, is something that you feel is important for your own work in that context too.
Well, as a visual artist, I have more permission to take apart the formal structures of painting, of film, of drawing, of thinking, of the history around me, of my contention and resistance to so many overly defined forms and structures. And of course, starting with contemporary academic language, that's a big place for me to come with my axe and hammer. Yeah. So I'm not unpacking my meanings for you.
Who do you want me to call on, and I'll give him the mic? You want to pick someone to ask you a question?
Oh, you do that. Because you're so agile tonight. Pick one.
Raise your hand if you want me to pick you.
I guess I
Yeah.
have one more
Lynne has
question.
another question.
Well, as an artist who's always been caught in the vortex of what it is to be political, whether we're talking about sexual politics or you bring up the Israel-Palestine situation and where is your place in it, have you always felt that you had to participate somehow through your art, or has it coming, I mean, the 60s with and the 70s with the Vietnam War, and I know you worked in a lot of collective sort of voices against the war, but how has that fluctuation, that give and take, occurred in your life between politics and art and that?
Well, it's like an invasion. I'm trying to remember if I had any political drawings when I was 4 years old. I'm not sure. But certainly the Vietnam War engulfed everything that civil rights had taught us and had illustrated. And our culture became overtly an assassination culture, killing its own people, its own politicians, its own political and aesthetic figures. So, being so enveloped in that always set up a kind of counterforce to the ecstatic, the joy, the normal, the ordinary, the pleasurable. So I move back and forth through those terrains. Yeah.
Do you have a particular project or projects that you're starting up now or going to advance soon that you want to talk about?
I have a wonderful retrospective exhibit coming up in Salzburg in 2 years, and that requires a lot of preparation. We're working on indexing and following all the works that have never been photographed or properly indexed. And 2 new books are coming out, one Black Dog, that's exciting, it's coming out from London, and Ken White has a major editorial work for that, and writing for it. And then there'll be a big catalog for the Salzburg exhibit, which means that works of mine that have never had a full context looks like they're going to come through. Yeah. So thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I think we have there. Feel free to come up if you'd like to